This is just a follow-up about the issues I'm having with the cut quality on my new Grizzly planer here. And, after contacting technical support, I'll go through some of the changes that they had me made, and I'll show you, exactly what's going on. So for the first thing, for getting the chips that were getting embossed in the board by the outfeed rollers, trying to get rid of that problem, they told me basically that I had to adjust the chip shield in there, and so basically you just have to take off the dust chute there, and then just take off this top cover here to expose the chip, that little piece that needs to be adjusted. And there it is, that orange piece there with the slots in it. The factory book and manual calls for it to be set at 1/4 inch, which I have it set right at 1/4 of an inch. But they told me that it should be set at 1/8 to 3/16 when using with a dust collector. That 1/4 inch number was only for if it was not hooked up to a dust collector, and they, basically said that this would solve my problem. So it was a really easy adjustment. You just have to loosen these screws, and then I got a piece of wood that I cut that was just a little bit over 1/8 of an inch thick to used to just for my gauge in there. So I just took it and I pushed it up so that there was an 1/8 inch clearance between the carbide insert there and the that deflector there. And then I just tightened it down. And you want to make sure these screws are really good and tight, because if one of them ever came loose, boy, that would really destroy the cutter on your head there. So, these things have got to be tightened up good. And, from what they told me, that should solve my problem. So, tighten it up. And see that piece of foam on there? We're going to talk about that later on the inside. I put the cover back on, but, so I just kind of put everything back together after adjusting that. Now, the other problem that I've been having also is the embossing by the outfeed roller in the wood, and that one's really the annoying one, because my old knife type planer left some really micro ridges in there that when it got done. But this Grizzly one actually embosses down in the wood, so it turns out that it takes a lot more sanding just to get these out. It's not like little ridges that sand right off. So Grizzly told me I could actually loosen up these adjustment screws here a little bit. So I went back and I loosened them up another 1/8 of an inch over the factory settings, and then I decided to run a board through and just check and see if these changes had any effect on the problems I'm having. So I just had a piece of ash there that I decided to try just for a quick run through, and if you look at it, you'll see that I'm still getting the planer chips embossed into the wood by the outfeed roller. That little serrated teeth seem to grab these things and just, you can see they presses them right in there and leaves an indentation that you have to sand out. And I'm still getting those indents in the embossing in the wood, which really takes a lot of sanding to get out, because you have to remove, a lot of wood to get down to that point. So, so far, their suggestions didn't really solve my problems here. And I talked to them about, possibly a rubber roller or a smooth roller here to help. And, there you can see where I'm still getting, some chip out too. If you look at this, the spiral head is, it still gives you tear out and chip out when you're planing. There's really not much you can do about it, I guess. But I talked to them about a different roller, and they said they had looked into, a different roller, but never did anything about it. So this is what I'm stuck with, basically. So, I went back and I actually loosened up those tension screws a little bit more, just to a point where the board started slipping just about, to see if I could get rid of them. And then I also moved that chip deflector to be a 1/16 of an inch from the cutter head this time, just to see if that would help with the the chips getting ground into the top. So I went back and I just figured I'd run a couple of boards and then look at the results and see exactly what was going on here. And as you'll see in a second, it really didn't make much difference. So then at that point, I went online and I started doing some searching, and I found that other people were having the same issue with those chips getting, embossed into the wood. And basically their suggestion was to remove that foam strip that I had showed you on the bottom of the cover to allow for more airflow when you have it hooked up to a dust collector. So, we'll see that's the next step that I did here. But, as you'll see here, these boards that I just planed with the chip deflector set, down to about a 1/16 of an inch now, like the Jets and other companies do, basically still have the chips pushed in there, and it basically takes like a sheetrock knife to scrape them off. There you can see how they don't just wipe right off, they're actually embossed into the wood. So that suggested that they may just didn't make any change whatsoever really, and loosening the rollers all the way up really didn't do much. It made it almost look like the rollers were slipping now and causing wider indentations and embossing in the wood. It's like they're a little bit too pointy. But so basically, I went through and I took that piece of foam out of the lid now there, and I went through with a piece of walnut just to try to see if that made any difference. And now if you take a look at this, you'll see that basically there are 0 chips embossed into the wood now. So that actually, removing that piece of foam per suggestion on the internet, actually fixed it. But there's still a lot of grooves in the wood from those Alfeed rollers, and that's about as loose as you can go with them without them just slipping and not pulling the board out. So I guess this is basically what you're stuck with if you buy this planer. It just seemed a shame that they would do this and have such a good quality cut and then ruin it with a Alfeed roller. But this is my results, and they basically told me that's what you have to live with. After this, I had to run some 3-inch wide poplar through there, and that really got grooves in it that were deep. They were kind of like really nasty, but there's that piece of foam I took out to solve the chip problem, and I guess the embossing problem is there to say unless enough people contact Grizzly about it and complain, and maybe they'll do something about it. So I just wanted to do a quick little follow-up of the performance of this planer, and how I feel that the cut quality just is not what it should be because of that serrated Alfeed roller. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe.